The man who saved a nation, Abraham Lincoln's 16th president. In 1776, a group of American colonies made a decision that would echo through history. They declared their independence from Great Britain. "We will be free," they vowed, but freedom is never freely given. Britain, one of the most powerful empires on earth, disagreed. For 7 long years, a brutal war drained the colonies of their resources, tested their courage, and demanded the ultimate sacrifice. Soldiers marched through snow without boots. Families went hungry. Disease swept through crowded towns. The future was a dark, uncertain road, and yet, against all odds, a nation was born. In 1781, the British Army surrendered at Yorktown. By 1783, the Treaty of Paris officially recognized the United States as a free and sovereign nation. But this new freedom was incomplete. Millions of people in America remained enslaved. The new nation had liberated itself, yet it carried a deep, festering wound that would not heal easily. It was into this young and troubled America that a boy named Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809, in a small, humble log cabin in Kentucky. A boy with no wealth, no privilege, and no power. A boy whose life would come to define the very meaning of freedom. The Lincoln cabin was as simple as it gets: dirt floors, cracks in the walls that let the wind whistle through, no glass in the windows. Life was a daily struggle for survival. Abraham's father, Thomas Lincoln, worked tirelessly as a farmer and a carpenter. His mother, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, was a gentle and kind woman who taught her children the values of honesty, compassion, and hard work. But tragedy struck the family early. When Abraham was just 9 years old, his mother died of milk sickness, a terrible illness caused by contaminated milk. The young boy was crushed by a grief too heavy for his small shoulders. Yet, even in his sorrow, he discovered something that would become his lifelong companion: a love of learning. Formal schooling on the frontier was a luxury. Teachers were rare, and when they did appear, they usually stayed for only a few months. All told, Abraham's schooling amounted to less than a single year, but he refused to let that stop him. By the flickering light of the fireplace, he devoured every book he could get his hands on. The Bible, fables, histories, law books. When he ran out of paper, he wrote on wooden boards. When he had no ink, he used charcoal from the fire. And slowly, the boy who spent his days chopping wood and plowing fields began to teach himself about the world. At 19, Abraham left home for the first time, hired to guide a flatboat down the mighty Mississippi River to New Orleans. 4 weeks, he watched life unfold along the river, the bustling towns, the grand ships, the vibrant markets, and all the different people. But one sight burned itself into his memory forever: men, women, and even children, chained together like animals at slave auctions. He saw families torn apart, mothers crying for their children, fathers standing powerless. It was a moral horror that would ignite a fire in Lincoln's heart, a lifelong hatred of slavery and an unshakable belief in justice for all. Back in Illinois, Lincoln took a job as a store clerk in the small town of New Salem. It was here his reputation for integrity began to grow. If he accidentally overcharged a customer by just a few cents, he would walk 4 miles to return the money. People started calling him honest Abe. He also discovered he had a talent for public speaking. At local gatherings, he told stories, weaving in humor and simple wisdom. His speaking style was clear, powerful, and persuasive. He was developing the voice of a man who could connect with the hearts of ordinary people. And through it all, he never stopped learning. He borrowed law books from neighbors, studying history, grammar, and mathematics late into the night. The poor boy from the frontier was transforming into a man of intellect, integrity, and vision. In 1832, at the age of 23, Lincoln ran for the Illinois state legislature. He lost, but defeat didn't discourage him. It fueled his determination. He studied harder, spoke more boldly, and gained valuable experience. 2 years later, in 1834, he ran again and won a seat in the Illinois House of Representatives. He served 4 terms, advocating for education, infrastructure, and fairness. Even in these early years, he spoke out against slavery, calling it a profound moral evil. He also taught himself law, passing the Illinois bar in 1836 and beginning a career where he combined a sharp legal mind with a compassionate heart. But the path of politics was slow and filled with setbacks. Lincoln lost bids for Congress in 1843 and 1848. Each loss, however, was a lesson, a stepping stone toward greater responsibility. By the 1850s, he was a respected lawyer and an emerging political leader. But America itself was on the brink of collapse. The issue of slavery was tearing the nation apart. As new territories were added to the country, the question loomed: would they be slave states or free states? The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 threatened to allow slavery to spread even further. This was the moment Lincoln stepped onto the national stage. He spoke with a moral clarity that cut through the political noise. "A house divided against itself cannot stand," he declared. His famous debates with Stephen Douglas in 1858 drew thousands of spectators. His words weren't fancy, but they were honest, moral, and direct. Though he lost the Senate race, he became a national figure. By 1860, the nation stood on a razor's edge. The newly formed Republican Party nominated Lincoln as their candidate for president. He promised not to interfere with slavery where it already existed, but he was firm in his resolve to prevent its expansion. The South panicked. State after state began to secede from the Union. By the time he took the oath of office, in March 1861, 7 Southern states had already formed the Confederacy. He began his presidency with a nation tearing itself in two. In his inaugural address, he pleaded for unity, saying, "We are not enemies, but friends." We must not be enemies, but his words couldn't stop the coming storm. On April 12, 1861, Confederate cannons fired on Fort Sumter. The Civil War had begun. Lincoln, a man with almost no military experience, was now the commander-in-chief of a nation at war with itself. He faced devastating defeats, harsh criticism from all sides, and the unimaginable weight of over 600,000 lives lost. Yet, he persevered. He visited hospitals, wrote personal letters to grieving families, and spent countless sleepless nights studying military maps and strategies. Every decision he made was guided by a deep moral compass, a profound love for his country, and an unwavering belief in justice. On January 1, 1863, Lincoln made his most defining move. He issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that all enslaved people in the Confederate States were, and would be, free. The war was no longer just about preserving the Union, it was now a fight for liberty, dignity, and fundamental human rights. The path to victory was brutal. Battles raged at Gettysburg, Vicksburg, and on countless fields across the country. Blood soaked the soil, and families mourned, but hope endured. Later that year, at the dedication of a cemetery in Gettysburg, Lincoln delivered a speech so brief yet so powerful that it has become immortal. "Government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth." With these simple words, he reminded a weary nation that their struggle was not just a military one, it was a moral, spiritual, and eternal fight for the soul of democracy. By 1864, the tide of the war had turned in the Union's favor. Lincoln was re-elected, a clear sign of the people's trust in his leadership. In April 1865, Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse. The war was over, the nation was saved, and slavery was abolished, but the joy was tragically short-lived. Just 5 days after Lee's surrender, on April 14, 1865, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated at Ford's Theater. The nation, which he had fought so hard to reunite, was plunged into mourning. The man who had risen from a log cabin to lead a nation through its darkest hour was gone. Abraham Lincoln's story is not just a chapter in a history book. It is a timeless testament to courage, perseverance, and the power of one individual to change the world. From the dirt floors of a frontier cabin to the White House, from a grieving boy to the savior of a union, from a simple rail splitter to the great emancipator, he proved that honesty, compassion, and unshakable integrity can overcome even the greatest of obstacles. Today, Abraham Lincoln remains more than just a historical figure. He is a symbol of hope, freedom, and moral courage. His journey shows us that no matter where we begin in life, it is our choices, our character, and our courage that can shape the future. And that is a story worth telling, over and over again. Thanks for watching.